All right, we're here. Believe it or not, and we were here earlier, but the folks didn't want to cooperate. Stand by. We're going to try to go live here now. Get unfrozen. Get you back in just a second. Stand by, okay? Coming your way. Mhm.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
That alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
We're frozen there, but David's here. Let's see if we get him up here. David, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can't see you unless, well, what I see is like you're a ventriloquist.
I'm frozen right here. Let's see if anybody else can actually hear us, and I'll work on this while we're away. So, David, good to talk to you today. Update us on what you know about Gator baseball, and we'll see if we can get myself unfrozen over here, okay?
Yeah. I think the only entity having a worse night than our technology department is the Gators pitching staff.
And that's the truth.
Man, I'll admit, I didn't watch the game, but I was just looking over the box score. It looked like everybody throughout there got pretty much battered, and which I guess we shouldn't be surprised at this point. That seems to not be a bug, but seems to be a feature with this team right now. And you sort of expect that. There's a lot of young arms out there, and there's going to be a break-in period. And they've been down this road before in previous seasons, so we're not at panic time yet. If you're a Florida fan, but you'd like to start seeing a little bit more consistency. Well, actually, no, you wouldn't, because they've been inconsistently bad. You got to see a little bit better pitching, basically.
Or some pitching.
Some pitching. Some pitching beyond Jack Caglione, which is the irony of it all. The guy who couldn't find the plate last year, now he's Cy Young, and actually more like Greg Maddux. He is on. I mean, he's exceeding expectations right now, and I think so. He had another 2 hits tonight. Went on the mound, but they've got to find some arms around him. Don't say
it that way. Don't say it that way.
Okay.
Not unless we're going to find some arms around him. No, I know what you mean, but it doesn't sound good.
Okay. That's true. They need to find some pitchers.
Other pitchers. Yes. There you go.
Some pitchers to complement his excellence at this point.
There you go. I knew you'd find the words. You are a wordsmith. What does that mean, a wordsmith? I don't even know, but
Smith. Way back. Yeah, but it's I don't get the whole stuff. Like, where would blacksmith come from? That means you're good at being black.
Are there any whitesmiths? I don't know. You know what I mean? Whitesmiths out there, David?
No, blacksmith. Yeah,
we're gonna get into trouble here. I can tell. I'm back on the air, David. I turned the other camera on.
I see.
I'm frozen.
Then I see.
Tommy Seal is still here. Thank you, Tommy. Go and tell your friends and neighbors that despite the fielders, the networks, whatever the issues with technology, Martin and Whitley are fighting through it. And thank you for those two people who are. So, David, I'd love talking to you this time of the week because so many things have happened, and you have such great whimsical takes on things. You have a little different. Well, you're a little goofy, but it's a little goofy, David. I like that about you.
Well,
And yeah,
blame the pediatrician that dropped me on my head at birth.
well, yeah. Think of what you could have been. Just think about that. But no, seriously, there was so much material there. If you're writing a national column, which you don't do, and I don't do, we write columns about the Gators. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, consequently, what stories did you absolutely love in March Madness so far?
Yeah, I love NC State so far. As one of them, just because I mean, it's 50 years ago that they won it all with that, with that great team of.
I was there in Albuquerque that day.
Were you?
There. Oh yes, I was there.
Well, I'm not telling you anything you didn't know better than
about
anybody else on the planet.
Yeah.
But
Not only
I'm
that,
just,
but David, just not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
the Denver Post had a big coverage team down. That was one of the biggest events we ever covered. We had like 6 guys there, not too far from Denver. We had the great Rick Riley and a bunch of other people there covering that. And we just, Woody Page, and we plastered it. We had free papers everywhere and everything we wrote. And I wrote a column, I'm sorry to say, just lambasting the NC State team for being not worthy of playing in Phi Slamma Jamma, and they were going to get humiliated and embarrassed. And of course, don't think for a second I don't ever forgot about that. But there I was, larger than life, my paper, my face on the boxes and stuff, and I said, so talk about those columns you were completely wrong, that you like to have back. That's one of mine.
Everybody was pretty much wrong on that, but that team was definitely just kissed by destiny when you look back on how everything had to go right. And I was actually listening to Monty Towell on the radio today because Steve Russell had him on. And Towell, that's another. I got the whole thing going. And how Towell pointed out, I hadn't thought about this, but that NC State team that won it 50 years ago, and the one that won in 74, then won 83, both of them had to win the ACC tournament to even make the NC State tournament.
That's right, they did.
And
I forgot.
And it's the same with this team. I mean, this team had to win 5 games in 5 days at the ACC tournament to even be here. And now you look, they're in the Sweet 16. So it's still hard to imagine them pulling it off. If they do, then I'm going to think God is definitely an NC State fan.
A Wolfpack member. What do you say? What do you say? A Wolfpack? A Wolfpack member? I don't know how you say that.
He got because just every few years he just throws in this huge bone. And it makes the hoity-toity guys down Tobacco Road at Duke in North Carolina, sort of gives them a slap in the face when these upstarts from Raleigh come and do this when they're not expected to. Yeah. Although, I mean, that's one of the first basketball games I remember was, and you probably remember that game between NC State and Maryland, and when only one team from the ACC got in to the tournament, he had to win, and that Maryland or that NC State had Tom Burleson, who was I think 7'4", and of course Towell and David Thompson, who if people don't know who David Thompson was, Google it, because he was like Kobe Bryant before Kobe Bryant. He was amazing.
Could jump out of the gym. He literally was. I mean, he was one of the first ones to dunk.
Yeah.
They didn't really allow it there for a long time. I mean,
he came in right when it was. I guess they started allowing in '72, which is about when he got there. But he was a decent pro, a good pro career. But if you saw him
at one time, David, the highest paid professional athlete, because I was in Denver at that time. He was the highest paid professional athlete, David Thompson, the Denver Nuggets. Yep.
You remember what he made? I don't.
I do not know, but it wasn't.
I would suspect he probably made as much in a year as LeBron does in a game these days.
That'd be a good stat for sure.
Yeah.
But the one I liked a lot, the one I would thought you'd have jumped on, would have been that Oakland team.
Yeah.
Because
I didn't want to be too obvious, but and I'll admit, when I saw Oakland versus Kentucky, and I got to thinking, man, I didn't even know Oakland had a school out there.
I know. That's what we all thought.
Right. And then I was thinking, well, finally the people in Oakland have something to cheer for besides the A's leaving and the Raiders leaving. And then you go, oh, oops, wrong Oakland.
Yeah, there were people saying, "Well, look, they lost their baseball team. At least they got their team in." All those
Yeah,
guys. Oh, egg on your face. And
yeah,
and I thought for a couple of days it was that Oakland too, and then you found out they're from Minnesota, of
yeah,
all places, and that their team, their coach, has been there 40 years,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
drag a guy out looks like an insurance salesman,
Hmm.
in his after by 8-year player, he comes out there and bombs Kentucky for 10 threes. Get
Yeah,
out of here,
yeah,
man!
that's,
That's
yeah,
unbelievable. That's
yeah.
beyond Cinderella right there.
Right. Well, just to reprise what we were just saying, I bet that guy makes as much in a year as John Calipari does in a game when it comes to coaching salary. And but it wasn't just that they Oakland, this no count, beat a number 3 seed. It was
Mhm.
that number 3 seed.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Blue. And what this man, you just know. I mean, the suicide prevention hotline was just buzzing in the Commonwealth after that. I mean, here we go again, losing first round to another mystery team
Yeah.
like that. And you could just there's a $35 million buyout, and I don't for Coach Cal, and I don't think they're
Well,
going to
he's
go
staying.
there.
He's staying. That was announced tonight.
Yeah. I don't think that they were going to go there. But holy smokes, he's he's obviously he says he's going to rethink his process now. Uh, and
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you? It hasn't worked,
yeah,
and he said it, but he said what we all knew quite some time ago. And the feeble excuse, he said, "Well, my guys are all 19 years old playing against 24 and 5." Well, that's your choice, man.
right,
It's your
right.
system,
It's
man.
not like suddenly, oh, look what happened here.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
and yeah, so he just got to. It's sort of like I'm not of Dabo Sweeney. I don't want transfers. Well, it's like Cal didn't want anybody old enough to drink on his team,
yeah.
and now
Or just shave.
now yeah, and now he's thinking they'll always be recruiting. They'll always have 3 or 4 5 stars coming in
Mhm.
for a year, but he realized I need a nucleus there of older guys who are out there who are the the 5th-year seniors, and I think we're finally next year we're going to start running out of 6th and 7th-year seniors. Now that once the COVID era guys fade out, but I mean he's got just got to figure out a different combination chemistry wise to get
Yeah,
them where they get back to where would you expect Kentucky to be.
right. I asked this question this morning on Brady's show. Brady, I always say Brady. What do I always say, Brady? on the QB and we do it every Tuesday morning,
Mhm.
and we talked about Shane. I think he's got his 4 teams intact, as I recall. And I asked him, "Did you like it more this year, or more last year, or the same?" I guess it depends on which teams you have in,
Mhm.
and also how they're doing. Because we were on the edge of a really good story with Florida. I
Mhm.
mean, they losing hang gliding like they did, what a terrible thing. Then coming back strong, getting behind by what's it, 14? And
Yeah.
then yeah, 14, and against a team from Denver that we didn't know much about, and then battling back and then to have the play come down to 6 seconds, whether the CU guy actually pushed off, and even the announcers, even the guys like Barkley and those guys, and that said it was a push off, and them getting the shot off and being a rim rattler, hit 3 times and went through in overtime. If that
Mhm.
call is made, they've got their guy. Florida's got a guy at the foul line shooting for the win,
Yeah.
and it was not made. And
Yeah.
did you get a lot of that, David, from your people about the calls and all
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah. And with the standard qualifier that one play doesn't lose the game. No, a lot of bad plays led up to that, but that one play did win the game for Colorado.
Yeah, and I don't know if
Yeah.
people say that. It's like
Yeah.
saying, "Well, one shot didn't win a Masters." Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you did.
right. And it sounds homerish, but if I was a Colorado fan, no Colorado, no objective observer can look at that play and say, no, he didn't push off. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
it was obvious that he pushed off. And the fact that the ref, it wasn't even like his view was, the ref was the closest guy to him. He was like 5 feet away, right in front of him,
Yeah.
and he sees this, and he just choked. I don't think
Swallowed
these
the
guys
whistle.
are. Yeah, I don't think they're crooked. I mean, if anything, you think that they would be in favor of the of the more glamorous team, blah blah blah. Of Florida's in Kentucky, but still, it wasn't like they were trying to protect Duke or something. When it comes, I'm going to swallow my whistle. It wasn't a matter of being favoritism. It was just a matter of incompetence at that point.
I'd like to hear from some of our
that should not be happening.
No, it should not. I'd like to hear from some of our little listeners. Excuse me for interrupting you. Who get their thoughts on this. We don't take calls, but we will someday. But we have people write in. Give us your thoughts. Was it one of those things where you say they've taken care of business? They shouldn't have had to come down to that? Or do you say, hey, they battled back from losing Handcloden. They were down 14. They came back, tied the game up, played great, and got down and lost on a bad call. I'm not saying that he would necessarily have made the foul shots, but everybody knows it just was not a good thing the way it ended. And I have good friends who are officials, one who's called 6 Final Fours. He swears to me it's not true. The officials swallow their whistle on a play like that at the end. They let things go. He swears. I think they do. I've seen too many cases of it. They say, I don't want my call to decide this, so it's no call. Well, it's egregious. It's an egregious no call.
Right. Yeah. If it's a questionable call, like, all right, well, where there is some doubt about it, maybe you do let it play through, because when you can argue both sides of it. But there was no arguing this.
Yeah.
It was obvious that he pushed on. I mean, everybody thinks back to that Michael Jordan pushing off supposedly to win his sixth and final title against Utah and all that. Played over and over. I mean, that was question. You've seen that again, and it was questionable. Blah blah blah. That would have been a referee exerting himself into that moment. Well, and he didn't have to. This was one where it called for the ref to insert himself into the moment, because it.
Yes, exactly.
It should not have happened that way. And it is too bad, because I think that had they gotten by that, that they might have, the ingredients were there to make a nice little run in this thing. I think that would have been a good scare for them. And they, I mean, Marquette would have been tough. I mean, frankly, Colorado was a little bit better than they thought, because you just don't pay any attention.
I tweeted this out. Look, when you're playing a team, they shoot 63%, is out rebounding you everywhere on the glass, especially offensive, keeping you from getting the offensive rebounds you need to get, and making everything they throw up there. I don't care who they are, you're not going to beat them. And everything went their way right down to the very end. Yeah, so what do? You just write it off? I just feel sorry for Todd Golden, that he brought his team back along so well during the SEC tournament. Lost a heartbreaker after playing 4 games in 4 nights, and then has his 7'1" center. People said, well, they got plenty of depth, don't worry. No, they don't. And by the way, a shot blocker, that's 5 fouls they had to give there. And having that guy in the middle would have made the hand goal, would have been a big difference. I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to whine. But you feel like something was about to bust loose with his team. Something really good and special, and now a lot of those guys are going to be gone. I mean, phenomenal play they got from Walter was amazing. And anyway,
you knew that they needed one guy to go unconscious, or something, and he did. I mean, it's rare when you see a guy score 16 straight points at the end of a game, and especially that 35-footer with 9 seconds left, and I mean, at that point, I think, man. Just if he gets one more shot, this thing's over, the way he did it. But it was the proverbial March Madness. That's what it was. That's why we whether we love it or hate it, it is enthralling.
It is, and the storylines, as I wrote in this promoting the show, I forget which time I had to do it 3 times because it kept going down. I said that what happens when things don't go the way you want them to go with your team, or things get kind of wacky? What do? Well, David, you and I especially, we go for the stories. That's why I love the story of Oakland. I thought it was great, and NC
Mm-hmm.
State too. So you go for the stories, and March Madness has lots of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they're not all favorable, but they
Yeah.
have some great stories. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. The one truism that people tend to forget is that every team ends with a loss except for one, in this
yeah,
thing.
that's true.
63 teams are gonna go home. Well, I guess it's 67. When you
Next
when
year
you
will be
count the play in.
72.
Yeah, yeah. They go home, feeling empty, and only one does that, and
Yeah.
that's that. And I, I've often thought the NCAA really lucked into this thing years ago because they weren't smart enough to think, hey, it's not just a basketball tournament, just all those elements that if you were just a TV producer or any entertainment, a movie producer said, this is what you want. The David and Goliath completely over and over and over. And the people, those are just great stories, time after time after
Well, I mean,
time.
there are 4 or 5 themes of literature, right?
Yeah,
And one of them
right.
is the underdog. It's
Yeah,
David and Goliath, whatever you want to call it. And
right.
Sam, it's all the biblical stories that we read about
Mm-hmm.
the underdog. And so you root for the good story. You want the good guys to win, whoever they are.
Mm-hmm.
I did a column on karma, David. I'd like to get your thoughts on karma. I'm not a big believer. I'm not a Buddhist, so I can't tell you that I believe in karma,
Mm-hmm.
but I know what it means. And there is something I call poetic justice. And
Yes.
sometimes the right team and right guy wins, even if it's not yours. And you
Mm-hmm.
taste that little karma, and sometimes it's bitter, and sometimes it's sweet. So we're going to talk about which one's bitter and which one's sweet. Loren Meadows is lurking in the shadows here, and I want to discuss the subject. I'm not getting much feedback on this, the way I understand it, and that is that to me, if you get all your pseudo objectivity of journalism out of the way and get right down to it, ETN was treasonous. What he did, I mean, I know. Well, yeah, I get it. I know taking care of business, all that crap. But the fact is, in all the years of covering Florida football, I can recall on 2 fingers or 3 any player who went to the dark side like that. Now they transferred and whatever and done it, but that one was a really one that really hurt. And of course, what happened? Well, was that karma? Well, let's go hear from our sponsor. We'll come back and David and we'll get our good friend back from football practice today. He actually knows something. Maybe you were there too, David. I don't know. So we'll get a take from him as well. So first, let's hear from Meldon Law. Jeffrey, you do a show where you get asked a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach us through. So Meldon Law, they won't back down. They will take your questions about your case if you have a question.
Yes, whether it's a new case or an existing case, give us a call. We'd be glad to go over it with you. There's no charge to review your case with you, and a lot of times it makes good sense just to get a second opinion.
Good stuff from Meldon Law. They don't back down, but they will give you a second opinion. All right, thanks very much, Jeffrey Meldon. And we're talking with David Whitley. We took a while to get started tonight. We had some gremlins. got it back and going. And by the way, shout out to Brendan, the producer. Brendan's been having some tough times with his health issues. He's under the weather. We wish him the best. He's on the SEC sideline show with Rob every morning. You can catch him at 9 o'clock on. You should do that because they have good guests. David Whitley is the best. He's going to be followed by our good friend Loren Meadows, who is always out and about the best places in town with the beautiful his beautiful misses, and David Whitley, the handsome one. Did we ever decide? Well, we were asking people to evaluate your looks last week, right? Did we do that? Huh? I think you got a few votes.
Yeah, they said I have a great face for radio, which this would have been radio until this whole Zoom thing came along. Unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my name should have been Marconi, but nonetheless, all right, David. So the question becomes, we'll bring Loren aboard. Am I the only one who's a little bit ticked off about the whole ETN thing and how it happened? I'm not asking for a pound of flesh. I'm not condemning the kid or say he should be banished. I'm not going to see him held in chains forever or whatever. But he did go to the dark side. And a lot of people were unhappy about it. Some pretty prominent Gators I know were very unhappy about it. Although Shane didn't seem to be bothered by it, and neither did one of our callers this morning. And I said, when the whole thing happened with DUI, nobody wishes anybody any old things to happen. But you got a sense of, all right, there is poetic justice in this world. How did you feel about
that? I hope there's karma. I believe in karma because there's too many things that people do well and don't get rewarded for in this earth, and too many things that people grew up for and don't get punished for. And I would hope that there's some cosmic justice out there. And so I believe in it in the big sense. In this particular case, I got to tell you, I'm more in the Shane camp because, I look at it from his point of view was that, and he said this as much, that he could have been, the number 2 or 1A back here at Florida and playing for a struggling team, or be the number 1 back at Georgia and be playing for a national championship. And when you look at it that way, and from his perspective, and I don't think it was a money thing because he was making. I don't think Georgia was going to give him any more money than he was getting at Florida. In fact, that I'm almost positive that the money wasn't an issue. It was just the things that Florida couldn't provide that he wanted, which was just he figures he's got 1 year left and he wants a chance at a championship ring, and that just wasn't here. Now, it would have been easier if he'd had gone somewhere like Ohio State, I guess, for Florida fan, because that's not the evil empire, just on the other side of the state line. But I'm looking at maybe I just have gotten too jaded to the whole NIL way of thinking, right? And transfer, and how guys are just it's become a transactional business and all that. And I think had this happened, had there been NIL 50 years ago and stuff, I don't think that the Gators of then would have been any more loyal than the guys now. It's just that the things didn't present themselves as they do now, and that's just the way of the world. So if I were him, I would have looked for somewhere else besides Georgia. And tried to make that a priority, but when it came down,
that wasn't important to him. And I know what this guy's going to tell us because he likes the players. He wants the players to have freedom. I get it. Yeah. I'll get his take on it. But it's just something that stuck in my craw about it. Like whistling in the river. Okay, no big deal. It is a big deal. And it's like the people.
It's a big deal. Yeah, no doubt that if it was a small deal, we wouldn't be talking about it. It is a big deal. I just hope that the people who are is really upset about it would feel the same way if, say, 2 years ago, Stetson Bennett had decided, I'm going to go to Florida, and they think, well, that's just not right, Stetson. You shouldn't do that.
Exactly. That's a good point. Well, let's see what Loren thinks about that, Stetson Bennett going to Florida. What's up, Coach?
How you doing? Yeah, Stetson Bennett needs to stay at Georgia. I'm all for. I'm for some of the NIL. I'm not for the transfer portal. Just to, put a clarification stamp on it. I think that what where I'm from, what ETN did was inexcusable. I mean, he could transfer, but to transfer to the rival for to get a
Yeah,
win or
that's not
get
good.
get what you think was an easy win. I don't think that. Just where I'm from and the way I'm cut and the way I was raised, that's just, you just don't do that. If you want to transfer, that's fine, but not to Georgia. Come on, dude. You played at Florida. You understand what it was, and that's my biggest hang up with ETN. His personal problems, what happened this weekend. I mean, I'll be the first to say could have happened to me in school, could have happened to all of us, could have happened in Gainesville to him. I mean, if you think this is the first time that he went out drinking and drove or an underage drinking and all that, well, you're fooling yourself. So this didn't happen because he's a Georgia Bulldog. Just made a bad decision. But when it comes to him transferring and where he transferred to, this generation just has no loyalty. There's no I mean, this is a game of kings, and there's no loyalty among royalty anymore. And that's just the way it is. And for me, I kind of hold it. I was around a couple football players at the softball game this past weekend, and I wanted to ask them, how do you guys feel about guys going to different places? Because I really want to know what this generation seems to think that that's okay. And for me, there's just a certain standard that should be in place when you decide to go elsewhere. And I just think certain schools are off limits. But that's just me. I mean, like I said, where I'm cut from and the way I was raised, my parents would have never looked me in the eye and let me go to a rival school. I mean, especially because I want to win. They would say, you made a decision, you stick with it, you live with it, and who's to say that Florida won't win during your time or won't be Georgia or what? I mean, you
Yeah.
don't know. So, Carson Beck could go down and that game could be a totally different game.
And that's really a big part of it, is that you can't guarantee anything. Look, I mean, the other part is that the the issue, right? Whether it's perceived or what, there is a drinking problem going on in Georgia. That's about the 20th DUI they've had, and it has to be something. Now, look, all the kids drink. Don't get me wrong, coaches too. But the bottom line is there seems to be an awful lot of them in Georgia recently. And I talked to an attorney friend of mine. He said, well, there are some differences in the DUI laws, etc. But you wonder if he had been in Florida, if that would have happened to him. I don't know. Again, that's where the karma, David, part comes in.
I do question, what is going wrong? What is it the problem in Georgia? Because it's been addressed, because it's been going on long. I was reading, what Smart said today, the education that they put these guys through. And they bought in who Dante Stallworth, who was a pro receiver who killed a guy in a DUI, and had him go up there and give that and just these guys knowing that the scrutiny they're under. The fact that they still go out and do that, it is just beyond stupid. And that to me is the greatest character flaw of Etienne. And we've all been there, young dumb college students. But if I was in a club where where so many people had been pulled over for DUI, and the whole world's looking at you, and the price you're going to pay if you do it. Say, I'll stay. These days, you call DoorDash and have them deliver you a 6-pack, something like that. It's a lot easier.
Well, like I said, call an Uber, man. Uber is slick now. We use it all the time for work. I mean, you can get and with the NI deal, I'm sure he can call the black and get the nice Suburban and look like a dignitary when he shows up at wherever he lives at. I mean, that's the thing I don't understand is, man, it's like if you don't mind, if you don't want to leave your vehicle there, hand it to one of your boys or somebody. I mean, you're Travis Etienne. They're gonna make Trevor Etienne. They're gonna make sure your car gets to where it needs to go, and then hop in an Uber and get home, man. That's the thing. I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, I know Athens is a small town, so maybe it's like where I went to school, 8 Ohio, where it's so small that you just gotta drink, I guess, or I don't know. But to not call a Uber in this day and age where
Mhm.
everything through the phone and I mean it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not gonna say karma because, like I said, that means it could have happened to any of us, and that means that Princely down at Ole Miss could get a DUI and all that. But I will say that it just at this point in time with this NIL money and those kind of things, the scrutiny that comes with it, you got to make better decisions. And I mean, like I said, I'm not going to throw stones because, like I said, I'm guilty of underage drinking. But what I did know not to do is get behind the wheel of a car.
Yeah.
And
Let's
I will.
switch it over. I'm sorry.
So,
Let's switch it over real fast because I want to get into a positive. I don't want to preach too much. I know people get tired of it. I get tired of hearing myself talk about it. It is what it is, but it did bother me. And I wanted to bring it up. I wanted to see if maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm the only one who felt that way because I didn't get a lot of support. But here's the thing. I want to know this is a very difficult time and hard to get information. It's just very, very hard to get in correct. And there's so much of it out there. You don't know what's right, what's wrong. And if you can get some, I mean, David, just keeping up these last 2 weeks with all that's going on with the March Madness and what's going on with football, what's going on with the transfer portal. It's like a whole, I don't know. It's just so busy and it's hard to remember from one day to the next. What was that guy's name again? Because there's so many different names now. David, we talked about this some. I know I'm older, and that might be a factor. I don't think it is. I think it's just hard to keep up with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, we live in the over information age. Used to be, it came out in an eyedropper. If you wanted your sports fix, you'd get it, from one paper in the morning and your local TV, but that was it. And now you can just bathe in it 24/7.
Yeah,
and there's always something, and there's so much more sports. It seems like
used to get 4 channels also, but that's what it was. Let me give us a tighten them around. I want to come back and approach the informational standpoint. We do have a man who was at practice today, who worked out there. One of us is working today, Loren. I want to get to the thought of it feels and sounds like, I don't want to say the burden's been lifted, but there's a little different tone than what Billy's saying. And his Saturday press conference delved into some areas of things that we've been asking Loren, please give us something. And he made some points on Saturday, and I hope this is a change in the style. Meanwhile, let me tell you about Titan MRI, North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility for MRI. We're excited to let you know that if you didn't, Titan MRI is now open and serving the greater Gainesville and North Central Florida market. Focused on you, the patient, having a great customer service experience. They know most people have a busy life, regular business hours, but they also need special appointments at evenings and weekends, and they can do it for you at Titan MRI. By the way, if you don't have insurance, they'll check or cash, no problem. They have modern equipment, and they have gone to one of the biggest bores or holes in the MRI that they make. And if you've ever been in one of those things, you get a little bit, a little antsy when you get in there with claustrophobia. They're working on that, giving you better comfort, and as they help you deal with claustrophobic patients. So check them out, TitanMRI.com. All right, so practice today. On the Saturday press conference, Billy made some interesting and poignant, and actually said something, which that we've been bashing him for not doing. And they even dealt into the issue of the team. What were some of the strong points? He singled out the secondary, and he talked about the offensive line. So today at practice, they teed it up. Loren, you were there. What'd you see? What'd you hear?
Well, I think the secondary is going to be better. And just from the standpoint of, it seems that everybody's on the same page. And I've said this from the standpoint of you saw the linebackers and the defensive backs, which kind of make up your shell of your pass defense in a lot of ways, working on similar things at the same time, walling receivers off, reading, number 2 to number 3, and really, breaking down the nuances of what your eyes are going to do to take your feet to the ball. And, I think that was indicative of, what Ron Roberts could bring to the defense, and then as well as, Will Harris, coming from the NFL, where, things are, a little bit more detailed, and, a mistake can cost you a lot more in a lot of ways. And, that's what I kind of wanted to harp on, is just really seeing where this defense is going to evolve to. And then I kind of watched Mike Peterson and his guys, which, they've got some guys coming back. Wanted to see LJ McCray. And, right now you just see a group that's dialed in, because I think they really want to be better. And I think it's going to start at all 3 levels with this team. And, I think they're headed on the right track now. You got to block, you got to tackle. The safety from Washington is much bigger than I thought he was. He's a big dude. He looks good on the hoof. And, and that's what Florida's got to get back to, is, back in those days where they had those safeties that would really come down and strike you, and 3-yard gains stayed 3-yard gains. And, you can't go backwards. I'm not sitting here saying we're going to be better on defense, but we can't be worse. God, they cannot be worse. So, just look like everybody's dialed in right now. Long way to go. They don't tee it up until August, but I really like what I saw out of Will Harrison secondary, and Ron Roberts with the linebacker core. Linebacker core is a little thin, though. I'm interested.
Well, Miles Graham is out right now, so.
Well, Miles Graham's not there, yeah, but just when I say thin, like,
He's
just
had surgery.
Yeah, but just thin, like, just I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we always use good linebackers. And David, I wouldn't say what Billy said was bragging, but compared to what he was saying before, he got into specifics about the young secondary players or guys in the secondary. He bragged on the offensive line, mentioned some names I hadn't heard before, and he was actually sort of giving us something for a change.
Well, he was more effusive than we're used to, and you don't draw conclusions from 1 or 2 press conferences, which is all we've seen really this spring. But
what else do we have? We have nothing else.
Yeah. But if you were, I'd say, Billy seems really comfortable, really at ease, and you almost think it'd be the other way. What with the hot seat stuff and the pressure and blah 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 that we're all well aware of. But I think he feels all right. I've got things in place now. I've got it's been a rough shakedown cruise for 2 years, but I think he thinks that the systems, and he's very as a system oriented. He thinks the systems are in place for everything, and basically things are built now, and he can just be a football coach mainly. And I think he's liking that, and that he thinks he's got a confidence about him that it sort of goes over. He seems pretty relaxed for a guy who supposedly is having the screws tightened by the minute every time, all that. And you're right. Usually when you ask him about a place, it's almost a reflexive qualifier. We know you don't like to single out individual players, but ... and he'll just say something pretty anodyne. But he was talking up things, and I think it's not just because he wants to pump them up, give them hot air, but I think he really does see improvement over last year, and especially on the the offensive line, the 2 guys they bought in, a tackle, that I think will be, and that's not counting Barber, who's will be there once he gets healthy. He feels they'll be much better there, and just sees a lot of potential. A lot of young guys got a lot of snaps last year in the secondary, and he sees all of them making a jump in their second year, along with other guys they bought in, and Jason Marshall coming back. So I think nobody likes to be picked to be mediocre or worse, but I think he sort of instead of putting pressure on him, he's sort of taken a different kind of pressure to where, all right, well, I like being the underdog, and he's got sort of a Cheshire cat grin going on about, okay, I think we're going to be better than people think.
Yeah,
Can I
right.
can I throw some in there,
Sure.
buddy, real
Go ahead. Sure.
from what I did see in practice, and just so we can put it to bed for the rest of the year, Graham Mertz is the quarterback.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
It's not even close. It's not even close. And I don't want to get into tick and tack and calling out some of the comments on here, but Graham Mertz is our quarterback. Is period. Our quarterback.
I don't think anybody ever thought he wasn't.
People. I'm just putting it. Some of the just you don't, we all know, but this whole thing where Lagway is going to lead us to the playoffs this year and all that kind of thing.
The backup quarterback's always most popular.
Graham Mertz. Well, we're not even sure he's the backup. So Graham Mertz is the quarterback. Just put that to bed for the rest of the.
Okay.
Yeah. I have read far too many observations from people who aren't really around the program. Says, Billy's got one chance. That is for Lagway to come in and give him the ball, let him do it. He's the man, and that is so far from the case. And it's not. I mean, even if Lagway was the man, I mean, Mertz, he's damn good. I don't, but he knows.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, and that's almost blasphemous to say, because there's still a lot of sort of this anti-Mertz. How good could this guy be? Feel that he sort of faked it last year somehow, but he is a solid number one QB. And
three picks, three.
Yeah, and it would be tough for most SEC quarterbacks to come in and unseat him. Much less a kid who really should be, getting measured for his prom tux right now in high school.
But I do like him. I'm excited about it. I can hear a couple of guys on here like Georgia is excited. And I think he's really fun to watch. And I feel safe in saying he will make his mark at Florida when it's his turn.
Yeah. It just won't be, tell you what, it won't be in the first game. Unless,
But he will have the packages every game, according to what I've been reading. It'll be something to get in, which is good. I want to get back to something that Van Der said earlier about how much he enjoyed a cup of coffee and a paper and to read one good story. I know that seems like it's in the dark ages now, but I just was want to reflect on that for a second. Loren be kind of the newbie at this, you being the old Grizzly veteran. The joy of having your time to read and having your time to soak up the moment and be able to take your time to write what you want to write. That's more than 50 words, which was a wonderful experience. And then I loved my time, and I'm loving it now. I feel very fortunate to be on with you guys at nighttime and talking about this. I'm educating myself, trying to keep up with what's happening out there. But today, two former colleagues of yours, well, actually not colleagues, but friends, Pat Dooley and Robbie Andrew, who were the Bobsey twins on the beat for so many years. Good guys. It's tough to cover the team, as you know, David, when it's your hometown team. It's really tough. Pressure's always on you. But I wanted to respond to something. Apparently, Robbie said this early in the show, and I missed it. I haven't turned it on. And he made a reference. Dooley said, well, that's your reference of calling me Buddy Martin 2.0. And I think what he meant by that was guys hanging on, past their time, whatever it was. And I'll take that. I mean, it's okay. I know it's not my time. But I wrote Robbie a note, and I said, I just heard your reference to Dooley being a Buddy Martin 2.0. I said, that was a C average in GPA when I was at college. And I said, surely Pat is at least a 3.6. And he wrote back, I won't tell you what he said, wrote back something else and said, the effect was, no, maybe a 3.5 or something like that. So the point is, I don't care. I mean, look, I've had my time, and I'm going to have every minute I have the rest of my life to enjoy what I do. And if that bothers people, I'm sorry. I don't intend to go off anytime soon, unless Loren kicks me off or something. But it's it's covered a lot of eras, David, and you'll be my witness on this. I mean, there was a time, Loren's kind of an old soul. He's a young guy, but he's an old soul. He gets it. The point is that when there was a time, don't want to sound like I'm living in the past ages, a long time ago, when you could walk in to a press box on a Saturday, and it was like the Sistine Chapel. It was like you looked up and down the rows at the people who were there and the names and the aura they presented and what it's like being in Cooperstown. And to be a member of that cast, to sit in that press box with the likes of those people, Evan Pope and Furman Bisher and Tom McEwen and on, was really a wonderful experience and one I wish every young writer could have. So I know you know about it, David. Loren knows a little bit about it, but that will be forevermore my favorite thing about being a sports writer, walking in that press box on Saturday.
Well, and one thing you have that so many people don't is just that, as you said, the perspective that can only come with having been there and instant recall of, oh, yeah, that happened in 1977. Dickey did that, blah, blah, blah.
What was your name again?
Yeah. Yeah. As opposed to everything, and you were probably that way. And when you broke in 72? No, whenever. But, everything was like, well, this must be the first time this has ever happened in the history of Florida football. No, it's happened before, and it just gives you, that perspective really comes in handy when you're trying to relay what give the truth of what's going on and lend, sort of not a wide-eyed view of everything that you saw that been there, seen that kind of thing, or you can compare what Graham Mertz to Shane Matthews to Don Gaffney kind of thing, that's a valuable thing to have, and you only get it if you've been around a long time. And anybody who says that you're holding on, I just have two words to say: Sid Hartman. So. He was still going strong at 99, right?
He was, man. God bless him. And Furman Bisher, look, Red Smith wrote a long time. Furman Bisher was still pounding out stuff in his 90s. And he was really good at it, too, by the way. I mean, look, it doesn't have anything to do with, it does have something to do with age because your body changes and your brain is not as sharp as it was. But there's still something about, if you ever play an instrument, if you put your fingers on the keyboard or guitar or whatever, and you play a chord and you play something and you just hear it and know it's right. You don't know exactly why you know it's right, but you know it's right. Writing is much the same way. Sometimes you can write a paragraph and you feel like, yeah, that's it. You know that's it. And maybe you never lose that, David. And Loren, I know you haven't experienced that yet. You've got a taste of it. You've done pretty well, Loren, by the way. You've really been coming from where you were, never have written. I know you have an appreciation for the great ones like Cy Burek, by the way. You didn't know I knew who Cy Burek was. One of the all-time.
I did. When we first met, you told me you knew Cy. Cy is a legend.
Yeah, Cy was a legend. He went to everything. It's a famous story about him that you should like to tell because editors didn't know what to do. These sports editors who assigned these people to go cover these games in all these faraway lands and, whatever. And Cy was in charge of that and the Dayton Daily News. Mm-hmm. And one Saturday, I forget, Purdue was playing Minnesota, so I don't know. And his managing editor said, we don't need to cover that game. And he said, what do you mean? He says, well, we know how it's going to turn out. He said, no, we don't. I never have and never will. And if I ever start believing that, I'll never cover any more football. We got to cover that game. And they covered it. Because that's right. You're there, and you don't know the outcome, David. Listen, I had no idea what would happen at Lake Placid in 1980. Mm-hmm. Craziness, or what happened in Augusta. I would have been in Augusta anyway. Augusta in 1986, or when I went to see a horse named Secretariat in 1973. Those unbelievable moments I was able to experience because why? I was there. And being there, and Loren, I respect this about you, at your own expense. You travel a lot to games and go and sit and watch the games because you need to be there. Freddie Russell, the late Freddie Russell, told me one time when I was about 23 years old, and he of course was a legend. He was the vice president of the paper in Sports Center, by the way. He asked me, he said, "Well, are you going to cover the Florida games?" And I said, "Maybe, I don't know. We'll see." He said, "Buddy, you've got to cover those games by hook or crook. I don't care if you're going to pay your own way." So, David, that was like back in the day. It used to be a privilege to get to go cover a game, right? And then it got to be like, oh, God, I got to go cover a game. It's all changed, David.
Yeah, now we covered. I'm embarrassed to say. I've covered. Oh, let's see. I think 3 road games in 2 years. Just because, not by choice. It's just the way things are these days with the economics of it, and it's not the same. I just,
it's different times.
I have, I have so many memories of being on the road and of being at, those stand out. I can't, when you're sitting in your office watching a game and covering it, they really all do feel the same, Yeah. I'm not thinking back to, man, I remember that game at LSU. What a, no, it's just another, game that I had a remote control in my hand,
But you have a frame of reference from which to write about it now.
Yeah.
But even that you wouldn't have had if you were starting out. It's harder for Loren. Loren follows it, but he wasn't at that game 25 years ago. But anyway, and unfortunately, it's the gift we've had of sports writing, and sports writers have kind of spoiled us, and I miss it a lot. But I do enjoy being a small part of it, and getting to talk to you guys as usual. And you guys did a great job. Any final thoughts, Loren? You look like you want to add something.
No, as far as you guys, as sports writers and things like that, it is a dying breed. The I call them the classics, not the old dogs or the has-beens, but the classics. Guys like you said, like Cy Burek and Hal Morris was another good one for the Dayton Daily News, and Edwin Pope, and those are guys that hearing them tell the stories is what made me fall in love with sports and that kind of thing. When they you remember they did the 30 sports, I think it was sports something, ESPN, and they had all those guys that had covered all these great events come back and talk about it and things like that. And that's really what made me, fall in love with sports. And to those listening, we still got some really good guys out there that are really doing their due diligence and really trying to tell the story as it can be told nowadays, where you don't get a lot of information and things like that. So I admire guys like David and his colleague at the at the Gainesville Sun, things like that have to take a limited amount of information to still tell a good story. And so I think that's important, and it's changing, but you still got people that tell the story with passion, report it well, have great morals and standards for themselves, both personally and professionally, and you got to appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I like to leave a little nugget for the end for those who stay to the end, and these are things that we don't usually tell during prime time. But David, there was a time at the height of sports when there was just crushing it in the 1980s, where sports writers were starting to get paid some money and whatever. And we were covering everything that moved, everything, and we had guys on the road all the time, every event. And Woody Page, you might know the name, was quite a character, still on around the horn. He was always known for his wisecracking. And we're covering, as I recall, I wasn't there. I think it was a Final Four. I can't remember for sure, but it was. And so when you get done, David, writing at night on a night game, you're exhausted. You are exhausted, and you're ready to crash. And maybe you'll go to the bar and have a couple, maybe you won't. But this particular night, they were all crashing back at the hotel, taking the last bus. You know what that's like. Be a bus and going in and carrying your gear up to your room. And they got on the elevator, and as they were getting on, there was about 8 of them, 8 or 9. A lady of the evening came to the elevator and said, "Gentlemen, may I join you?" And I said, "Sure, come on in." And of course, conversation started, and they asked her what she did. She told them what she did. "Would any of you gentlemen like some company tonight?" And there wasn't anything. And he says, "Well, what would that allow me?" She said, "Everything." And Woody Page says, "How about a column of sidebar and notes?"
No. Her price suddenly went up.
Dark humor for people that like to have those hours. Guys, thank you both for David. Thanks for weathering the technological storm and getting on the air with me and guiding me through. And Loren, thank you for joining us for going to practice today. You guys are great. Appreciate you. Have a great week, and let's have a little fun. All right, how about that?
It's a deal.
Talk
Be
again
back
soon.
out there Thursday. Let's see what we get.
Let's do it. All right, thank you, Loren. Appreciate
All right.
it. David,
Good night,
thank you
guys.
so much, buddy. Appreciate it. I want to tell you folks also about a special company, a group of people that I set aside this time at night because they have made such a difference in my community and in my programming. And so they've been sponsoring my show now for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And I do appreciate the loyalty. And they do so many good things. I mean, Rinstar is a nationally known company right there in Ocala. They specialize in clinical trials. And that means getting people to all do a study. Some cases you get investigational medicines or devices. And there will be, like they do, they'll have a group of people if you qualify. And in some cases you get compensation for time and travel. You'll have a group that'll have the actual medicine, and some will have the placebo, and they'll do the study. And that's how they get the information. And then they do send it off and get the information. And then that data goes into these big companies who then do their medications. And they want you to know, Rinstar, that what they do, such a big part of that is volunteers. And they appreciate the fact that you can help them get to the bottom of this and find out some things about medications that are unique to our communities, not just somebody off the shelf in New York. And so that gives them a chance to bring new therapies to our public safely, and clinical trials would not exist without the commitment of you volunteers. If you will be a part of this at Rinstar Medical Research, by the way, go to rinstar.net and find out more about it. You may receive study-related medications and procedures at no cost to you or your insurance company. Gain access to investigational medications or devices. So go to Rinstar Medical Research and find out more about it. They're bright, dedicated to bringing you new opportunities to participate in medical science in our local community. Rinstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to all of you for listening and wading through the technological issues. And we're back tomorrow night with Sweet and Sour. Allie Pete Wilbur, David Bolton, and maybe a surprise or two coming your way. So we'll talk to you tomorrow night right here on the same time, same station.